Hello YouTube, this is AugustusLarch. I've been listening to the radio a lot lately because there's a lot of new interesting news on, and listened to Obama's speech, and you know what I think about the elected officials? They're just puppets. They're just puppets entertaining other puppets. Really. And they keep talking about the green movement and global warming. Oh, global warming is going to get us. When they have no rational base for saying so. There's no evidence. Haven't been taking information that long anyway, based on what their own work is. And they'll go and fudge their numbers any way they can. They'll go up to the Arctic in the summertime and say, look at all the ice going away. And they don't, oh, they make it a point not to tell you what month it is. That's not important. This is the Arctic. There's supposed to be ice up here. No, there isn't any. Let me cite something real. Back in 1815, they had and 1816 was the year, but in 1815, their volcano erupted. And a volcano can put out big greenhouse gases, bigger than the Industrial Revolution can, at a rate that can't be surpassed. And in 1815, there's a huge volcano that erupted called Timor in Indonesia, and it caused an event called 1800 and froze to death. And the old timers recall, and it was written down in history, that there wasn't a summer in 1816, and they didn't really know why until later. And they didn't blame human beings, really. It was a part of the world out there for them. We had a bad year for growing this year. No kidding, you did. It was worldwide. They didn't have, the bunch of horses died because the people had to eat their feed because they were starving. It was pretty serious. Didn't have food preservation and stockpiling and warehousing that we have today. Food was a very tangible thing, very necessary and tangible in the timeline. You grew stuff for that year and left a little bit over for the springtime when it was going to be lean before those crops started growing again. And they had a volcano destroy their growing season. So you're telling me that these greenhouse gases are going into the air and they're going to make the earth warm up, when all evidence says that it'll make the earth cool down? There's some kind of they're pulling a swindle on all of you out there with their electronic media. Don't you know how it destroys the community? There were sociologists that went up to Saskatchewan to test this before and after the television came in. And they saw, just with their minimum channels, that the communities kind of dwindled a little bit. People didn't want to be in their community and go out visiting and be a part of the world, outer world. They wanted to be in front of this hypnotizing box called a television. And they pretty much believe everything it says. They crave it. It's an addiction to make you believe that there's a green movement. You know who gets off on the green movement and global warming fears? The oil companies. They get to set their price pretty much. And then they can say, oh, well, it's global warming. We're being more green. And then they'll have greenhouse taxes or green taxes. I forget what they're called. Carbon taxes. And that's just a way for the governments to pull more revenue out of a dying animal. It's pretty sad. It's really sad. So when everybody talks about global warming to you, bring up 1800 and froze to death and see what they say about that. Oh. This is AugustusLarch. Don't believe all the schemes and everything. When Obama talks about the oil, the British and the Americans are kind of in a cabal to leverage the oil away from continental Europe, which actually needs the oil. It's a geopolitical thing, but they can't tell you that, so they come up with, they've worked many years making you an easy market to sell to out there in the viewership world. So don't believe all that when they hand you a line like that to believe so readily. Look what other lines they hand you. Really. Something to consider. This is AugustusLarch.